Hello. Yesterday I started talking about the precepts, having talked about all the verses of the sevenfold puja on previous days. And I got as far as stillness, simplicity, and contentment. So when we recite those verses, we also say, I purify my body. So with stillness, simplicity and contentment, I purify my body. So what exactly does that mean? For me, it means that I change my behaviour. Basically, I purify myself by acting more ethically. And yes, I think if we're going to meditate effectively, if we're going to meditate and allow our mind to become still and open, spacious, less bothered by the thoughts that arise, then we need a conscience that's free of guilt and remorse and regret. And that's hard, that's quite difficult, because when we meditate, everything in our awareness comes up, and we can't expect to have a still and open mind, a mind untroubled by thoughts, unless we are acting with quite a decent degree of ethical behaviour. So as I've said before, I think when I first came across Buddhism, I thought I was already pretty ethical. And I mean, I'm not saying that I was very unethical, but the more I meditated, the more I realised that there were layers of my behaviour and, of body, speech and mind that were definitely not very ethical. So yes, purifying ourselves. I think I mentioned a verse from an old text that says, purity and impurity are personal concerns. No one can purify another. So that's from the Dhammapada. No one can purify another. So, there's no God to absolve us from our wrongdoing, but by looking deeply into ourselves, we can have a kind of healthy regret and let go of things. So I've already talked about the confession section, and you could listen to that if you were interested. So purifying ourselves means unburdening ourselves. We're carrying a load, if you like, of our past actions and ways we behave that perhaps we're not very happy with, but we don't sometimes let them become very conscious, and that way we keep our behaviour at a certain level, you could say, of not gross unethical behaviour, but actually not quite kind, not quite pure. And part of our Buddhist practice is taking off those layers of guilt and remorse and letting go. So stillness, simplicity and contentment are very relevant at the moment to be talking about, because I noticed that people are getting a bit fed up of the lockdown. They're getting impatient. They're thinking, let's be out there again. And I noticed recently when I went for a walk that there's a lot more traffic on the road than there was, say, 3 weeks ago. And I think it's an indication that there are more people about. So people are loosening up already. But actually, this is a precious time for us to take advantage of this particular precept, of looking for contentment in the way life is at the moment. It is rare. We might never be in this position again. Hopefully we won't. But we might be. And at the moment, our life is very different to how it usually is. And that might be very difficult in some ways. It may be, it may not. If you've been practicing a long time and you already have quite a spacious life, maybe your children have grown up and you don't have small children running around. Well, in that situation, you've got a lot of opportunity to make the most of stillness, simplicity, and contentment. To live the quieter life that maybe you've always dreamed of, but the reality is a bit different. So, you can't go to shops at the moment, you can't go to restaurants, you can't go to the cinema or anywhere like that. So, what do you choose to do? Do you choose to distract yourself at home with all sorts of, distractions? There's so many of them, aren't there? Box sets, video games, all sorts of things, drinking, and just noticing that we've got a choice. I think this is an interesting area because often we sort of get dragged along and we let life happen to us rather than taking the reins. And I don't mean by just controlling ourselves, because actually doing nothing and having a day where there's no structure can be really useful. You could try a day, if you have the opportunity to take off your watch and have a day where you don't mind what time it is. You're going to have a more spacious day, eating when you need to eat, sleeping when you need to sleep, working when you need to work, doing a bit of gardening or something. But knowing how to stay in a broad awareness that allows time to emerge, allows ourselves to relax into not feeling driven. We can feel driven even in this time of lockdown, to use things profitably. And I'm talking about something a bit different, about using the time in a more spacious way. So I was just thinking actually that, even if you've got young children, and that is hard work, I'm quite sure it is, you're trying to homeschool and so on. You could try, even with them, moments of stillness. It's like, maybe turning it into a game. Who can keep still? Who can keep still for 10 seconds maybe, even 10 seconds? So introducing sort of moments of mindfulness, even with children, is a possibility if you turn it into a game. One thing that I've really enjoyed about this time has been the quiet. And even though things are getting a little bit busier again, there is still a lot of quiet. The skies are quiet, the roads are definitely quieter than they usually are. And it's knowing how to enjoy, without forcing oneself, the fact that we're in this completely different time than we've ever been before. And it's also a time when we are much more likely to naturally think of other people, because we know that there is a lot of suffering. It's unimaginable to think of more than 26,000 people having died of coronavirus. But we can quite naturally, hold joy and a simplicity of life that maybe we're experiencing, with the fact that actually there is a lot of suffering going on, and we can take that into our practice, with the Metta Bhavana, with the Karuna Bhavana. So we're not trying to deny anything or escape from anything. We're having the opportunity to be more aware of the whole of life and the whole of the teachings of the Buddha, that actually things can be very unsatisfactory. They are certainly impermanent. We've got impermanence right there before us. And that we can be more aware that actually we never know when our lives are going to have to change. And we're witnessing, people's lives that they thought were stable, that they thought they could predict and so on. And we can't predict. And the enemy, if you want to call it that, is a virus that we can't see, is very unknown, we don't understand a lot about it, and yet it's having this big effect. So can we be content at this time? Maybe we feel guilty about being content, but actually, looking for what is beneficial and what is positive at this moment, is really important. In a way, that's what Buddhism is all about. It's about being aware right here, right now, without worrying about the future, without regretting the past. And, if we can really give some thought, some conscious awareness into stillness, how can I bring stillness, simplicity and contentment more into my life, we just benefit tremendously. So that's all I'm going to say today, and tomorrow I'll talk about the next precept probably. Bye for now.